What's up, people? It's Mr. Barnes here. Today I'm going to talk about parts C and D of your internal assessment. This is your quality and treatment of data collected and your written analysis, okay? This is 15 marks total, and it is recommended that you spend about 1,400 words on this section, okay? So this is the heaviest portion of your internal assessment. Students often find that this is the most difficult portion to write, but hopefully with this video, I'll make it much easier for you, okay? First thing we're going to need is the ultimate resort data spreadsheet. You can see that that's the title of this one. Okay, you find that. You should all know how to find that, but you find that in the Google Docs under internal assessment, batch of 2014, and then right at the bottom there, if it's sorted by title, it'll be this one right at the bottom, Ultimate Resort Data. Okay, click on that, download it, and then you can have it on your computer to work with through Microsoft Excel. Once you have that, then you need to basically narrow it down to what you have decided is your research question. For this example, I'm using the research question, what is the relationship between waste and resorts in Mabini? And so the reason you narrow it down is simply because we have so much data that you are only going to have to use a small portion of all of this data. And as a result, by narrowing down the research question, as you look at the data, you can cut out all the things that you don't need to use. Okay? So, what have I decided to use as a result of my research question? Well, if I minimize that, okay, I have come up with a couple of different things to show you as examples of what it is that you could include in your own written analysis here, okay? So let's just get right into it. I decided that I wanted to look at comparison between the number of rooms and bags of trash. And I could come up with a hypothesis here. My hypothesis would be the larger the resort or the more rooms it has, potentially the more bags of trash. And again, this is a little tricky because if we think about, some resorts are more popular than others, which would cause them to have fewer people at them, and they could be larger, but yet since there's fewer people, they're producing less trash. And so, we might find that it doesn't have such a strong correlation, but this is what we do our written analysis for anyways, and whatever we find, that is okay. Whether it has a correlation or doesn't, it's still okay. So let's take a look at what I did find. I ran a Spearmans rank here. So I'm looking at correlation between these two variables, the number of rooms at the resort and the bags of trash. Okay, I took out all of the resorts that maybe didn't have a number and just deleted them completely from my analysis. But as you can see, it looks nice and neat here. Okay, all of the resorts have a number, so I just used what was given in the data. All right, the way that I ran a Spearmans rank, the easiest way, and I would suggest this, is to go ahead to type in Spearmans rank calculator. Okay, so that's Spearmans rank calculator, and the first one that comes up, the first hit that you get, will be a very good calculator in which you put one set of data in on the left side, one set of data in on the right side, hit calculate, and it will provide you the actual numbers, and you won't have to do the counting yourself, which is super nice because we made a lot of mistakes even in class trying to count our numbers, okay? As it punches it out, okay, you'll find that Spearmans rank correlation coefficient, SRCC, the number that you're going to want to look at is this number right here, okay? So I came out with 0.39, which is a weak positive correlation. When we run the significance test, and you can get a significance test just like this online or in your packets. When we run the significance test, we see that if we have 30 data sets total and we go up to here to 0.39, we're just below that 5% where we can accept the hypothesis or assume that it was not happening by chance. And so, although we have to reject the hypothesis potentially, it's still valid information that can go into your data collection and analysis, and it's still worthwhile to have it within the paper itself. You don't have to throw it out completely just because it didn't work out the way that you thought it was going to work out. Okay, so let me go back to what I have here, because as you can see, I've created a graph to go along with my Spearman's rank. All right, and this is where I would like to talk to you about something that could be very, very helpful for you. I call it the P approach: patterns, examples, and anomalies. Okay, when you are looking at your data, for whatever data that you're looking at, use this approach. Let me zoom in on this. Okay, so this is, again, patterns, any patterns that you see within the data, examples, and anomalies. Okay, so if we're looking at the data, it's hard to see. But once you create these graphs, it'll be much easier for you to pick out the information that you'd find in the patterns and examples and anomalies. So, for example, I have set it by number of rooms from least to greatest, and you'll see that that weak positive correlation does show up a little bit. You'll notice that it shows up a little bit right here, right here. Okay, there's a small amount right here, small amount right here. You could point these out, and remember, any annotations that are 10 words or less aren't counted in your word count. And so if you're looking at the pattern is obviously you see that the weak positive correlation would be the pattern, where the larger the resort, a weak positive correlation. Generally, the larger the resort, the more bags of trash the resort produces. Okay. Examples would be these ones that I circled here. Okay, you can see how these examples fit right into that weak positive correlation. And again, this is all part of the written analysis. You would include this graph in your paper itself. You would label it as figure 1, figure 2, so on and so forth, and then you would maybe annotate this. So you would say that this is an example of the weak positive correlation. Okay, so you can see how that P approach works very well, especially once you get down to anomalies, where, for example, this resort here is so large, yet it only produces a small amount of trash. What can you do to maybe explain that anomaly? Maybe, again, like I said at the beginning of the set of data that I'm talking about here, it's potentially that this resort doesn't get many visitors, and so they're producing less trash. Even though it's large, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to produce the most trash. And so stick to that P approach: patterns, examples, and anomalies for every single set of data that you end up working with in your written analysis. I'm going to break this video up into 2 parts, and in the next part, I'll get into a little bit more in the Spearman's rank, as well as how to modify your graphs so that instead of looking like this, they look more like this, as well as some neat ways to add the data to make it look more spatial. For example, taking pie charts and then adding it to a map so that you can show the spatial variations within the data itself too. So again, I'm going to break it up here. Catch me on part 2, and we'll finish up with parts C and D of the Geography IA.